In lesson 2-3, you are going to be working on finding factor pairs. As I had mentioned earlier in another lesson, Unit 2 really deals with a lot of multiplication basic facts. So make sure that you continue to work on those if you do not have those memorized. Also, please keep your multiplication chart near you when you are doing these lessons. So with your whiteboard and whiteboard marker, go ahead and number 1 to 3. We're going to be doing lots of warm-up problems having to do with the multiplication, and they should go rather quick. Number 1, number 2, number 3. Give me answers only. Pause the video as needed and make sure you're completing it with me. Number 1, 7 times 4 is 28. 4 times 5 is 20. And 3 times 6 is 18. Go ahead and wipe off your whiteboard. And again, number 1, 2, and 3. Stop the video. Go ahead and solve for answers only the product of 6 times 9, 7 times 5, and 9 times 7. Pause your video. Write down the answers. Number 1, 6 times 9 is 54. 7 times 5 is 35. And 9 times 7 is 63. Erase your whiteboard. And one last multiplication warm-up. And again, these are extended facts. So remember, just to ignore the zeros to begin with. Take your basic facts and then add your zeros on the end. Go ahead and write down the answer. Pause the video before you go ahead and check your work. 9 times 5 is 45. Add your 0 on the end to get a product of 450. 6 times 7 is 42, and 2 zeros after the basic fact. The product is 4,200. And 5 times 5 is 25. Add in 2 zeros at the end to get a product of 2,500. Here is another time you're really going to need to know your facts or have that chart next to you. This is not in your math journal. We are still working on your whiteboard. So, number 1 on your whiteboard, list all of the multiplication facts you know that equal 14. Use counters to make arrays for 14 if you need help. So, in order to make 14, an array, remember, is when you take counters or dots and you make the same number of dots in the row and you have equal amounts in each column. So if I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and did 2 rows of 7, that would be an array. And the array would look like 7 times 2 equals 14. 7 in each row, 2 rows, 7 times 2 is 14. Now, another way to do it is to start with the number times 1. The number itself times 1. So if I take 14, I know I can take any number times 1 to get the number itself. So 1 times 14 is 14. Then I would take my multiplication charts and go across the 2's. Is there anything times 2 that would give you 14? So take your multiplication chart, take your finger across the 2's, so go to the left-hand side, go to 2, go all the way across till you get to 14. And there is something times 2 that gives us 14. When you get to 14, go straight up, and that tells you the other factor. 7 times 2 is 14. Then you would go across the 3's. Is there anything times 3 that would give you 14? Well, 3 times 4 would give me 12, and 3 times 5 would give me 15, but there's nothing times 3 that would give me 14. So I don't write that down. Then I think, is there anything times 4? Go across your 4's. There's nothing times 4 that gives me 14, only 12 or 16. I would do the same thing with 5s. Same thing with 6s. And when I got down to 7, I would know that 7, and I go across to 14 times 2 is 14. Notice I have what's called the turnaround fact. And you know what? That means I have found all of the factors, the two numbers that multiplied together to give me 14. And I know now I have them all. So the factors of 14 are 1, 2, 7, and 14. Make sure you're writing this down on your whiteboard with me. These numbers are called factors. Two numbers multiplied together to give me an answer, what we call the product when we multiply. So the numbers that are factors are 1, 2, and we typically put them in order from smallest to largest, 7 and 14. Those numbers are all factors. Which numbers are products? 14 is the product, the answer when you multiply. We're going to try one more of these before we get into your math journal. At the top of your whiteboard, I want you to write the number 18 and a line underneath. We're going to go through our multiplication chart until we get the turnaround fact and know that we have all the factors, all the numbers multiplied together to give us 18. Always start with 1 times itself. So 1 times 18 is 18. Now, if I go across the 2's on my multiplication chart, go all the way across, I see that some number times 2 gives me 18. Go ahead and go up to the 9. And 2 times 9 gives me 18. Now go across the 3's. So put your finger on the left-hand side of your multiplication chart. Go all the way across, and yes, something times 3 gives me 18. Stop at the 18 and go straight up. What times 3 gives me 18? 6 does. Then I would go across my 4's. Is there anything times 4 that gives me 18? The closest would be 16 or 20, but that's not 18, so nothing times 4. Let's go across the 5's. 15 or 20, but there's no 18, so nothing times 5 would give me 18. Go across the 6's. Oh, there is an 18. So I know that 6 times something gives me 18, so go up from the 18 and you should get 3. This is what I say when I'm in school. I say, ding, ding, ding. Look it. I have the turnaround fact. It's the same fact, but the 6 is listed first. Once I have that, I know I have all the factor pairs of 18. So all the factors, if I were to put them in order, would be 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, and 18. The product, the answer when I multiply those numbers together, is 18. We are going to go ahead and practice this in our math journal. We're going to go ahead and open to journal page 39. On journal page 39, you're going to have to write kind of small, but we're going to write equations to help us find all the factor pairs of each number below. So the equation would be, what two numbers multiplied together give me 20? So it is really helpful if you start with 1 and go to 2 to 3 to 4 until you get the turnaround fact. So in your math journal on page 39, you're going to write 1 times 20. Now, I say, is there anything times 2? And this is where my multiplication chart comes in. So go across the 2's. Something times 2 does give me 20. When you go across the 2's and you get to 20, stop there and go straight up. That will tell you what they multiplied by. 2 times 10. go ahead and go to 3. Is there anything times 3? Anything times 4? Nothing times 3. 4, go across your 4s. There is something that is multiplied by 4 to give me 20. Go straight up, and 4 times 5 is 20. Then I'm going to look across the 5s. There is something times 5 that gives me 20. 5 times 4. And guess what? That's the turnaround fact. It's the same fact. If I were going to write the factor pairs, I would write 1 and 20 are factor pairs, 2 and 10, and 4 and 5. The sooner you have those multiplication facts memorized, the more beneficial it will be to you in every lesson going forward, not only in 4th grade, but in 5th grade and middle school. So I'm going to go ahead and use a different color. I don't have to include the turnaround fact. That's why I erased that. So now we're going to do 16. I always start with 1 times itself. So 1 times 16. Go across your 2's on your multiplication chart. If I go across my 2's, there is something times 2 that gives me 16. What is it? Two times 8. Now I look at 3. Is there anything across the 3's? If I look at my 3's, the closest would be 12, 15, 18. Nope, nothing times 3 would give me 16. How about 4? Oop, there is something that has 4. 4 times 4 is 16. So now I can stop and I can say, okay, I have all of my factor pairs. Once I have that turnaround fact, then I'm going to write them over here. 1 and 16, 2 and 8, and 4. And you can write 4 and 4 if you want. Okay, let's try 13. We always start with 1 times itself. I could go across the 2's. I can go across the 3's. I could go all the way down to 12's on this multiplication chart. There are no other factors, numbers multiplied together, to give me 13. So the only factors are 1 times 13. And I'll give you a little sneak preview. This is called a prime number. It only has 2 factors. Let's continue. Number 27. We always start with 1 times itself. Then I would go to the 2's on my multiplication chart. If I go across the 2's, they all are even numbers. And 27 is an odd number. It ends in 7. 7 is an odd number, so there's nothing times 2. I'm going to go across my 3's. There is something times 3 that gives me 27, and that is 9. And I could continue across the 4's, and the 5's, and the 6's, and the 7's, and the 8's, and I would get to 9 again. And the next set of factors are 9 times 3. And I always say in school, I'll say ding, ding, ding. Means you have found them all when you get the turnaround fact. So over here for factor pairs, I'm going to say 1 and 27 are, and 3 and 9. Whoops, and 9. I want you to try 32 by yourself. Go ahead and stop the video and see if you can come up with the factor pairs. I'll tell you there's 3 sets of them. Go ahead and pause the video. I hope that you're being honest with me and stopping the video and trying this on your own before you look at the answers. So we know that 1 times 32, because we always take 1 times itself. Now, I bet you they tricked you a little bit. 32 is an even number, and this isn't a basic fact, but because it's an even number, I know I can multiply something times 2, and it's 2 times 16. Nothing times 3, but 4 times 8 equals 32. And I think I said there were 4. There's 3. So we have 1 in 32, 2 in 16. I wouldn't expect that all of you would get that, but good job if you did figure that one out. And then 4 and 8. Now you're going to go back to your Schoology folder and see what you need to do for the remainder of lesson 2-3.